I've known each other for quite some time. Well, anyways,
Oh,
good morning, everybody. We are starting our episode here with RE Hustle. We've got Meg Butterly on, as well as Chris Bennett. I know both of these folks for quite some time now, and as well, we also have Chad on with us. But Chris, if you don't mind, why don't you jump in and kind of introduce yourself and let everybody know how we kind of know each other?
Sure. So my name's Chris Bennett, and I work for Prosperity Home Mortgage. I am a Charlottean, native Charlottean. I grew up here. Parents still live in the house I grew up in over in Madison Park, which is pretty cool.
Dang, wow.
I've been in the mortgage industry for 23 years now. Before that, I was a struggling golf professional. So I think I made a pretty good move, but definitely been some ups and downs in the mortgage world, the time that I've been doing it. And anyway, I work in the office with Mario and Chad. I met Mario about a year ago, or 6 months ago, maybe.
Yeah.
When he made the move to Berkshire Hathaway. I'm the in-house mortgage lender there. And yeah, so that's a little bit about me. I live over off Sardis Road, a neighborhood called Benton Woods with my wife. 2 daughters, 2 dogs, 2 cats. Ooh. Too many females in this house. So.
What about that lovely dog?
Oh, yeah. So I was telling Mario earlier, we've got 2 dogs. We've got a golden doodle and a wire-haired Vizsla. And the Vizsla obviously was not feeling well last night. My wife took a look at her, and I found 2 fang marks on her nose. So she got bit by a snake in our backyard. So anyway, we spent a good amount of time at the emergency vet last night, and those places are so inexpensive too. It's great.
no, they're not.
Anyway, she's okay. They put her on some pain medicine and cleaned her wound up and everything, but it was a pretty hard bite.
Where did you take her? What emergency room?
It's a emergency vet in Indian or Stallings actually.
Okay.
So it was the closest one to us from where we live. So it was about 10 minutes from the house, and they were operating a little differently because of COVID as well. So we had to kind of wait in the parking lot. We couldn't go in. But
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Well, Megan, why don't you give your little introduction, young
you
lady?
Want this story?
Yeah, let's everybody tell the truth now.
Do we have time for all of this? I mean,
I don't know where Todd is.
Right?
Introduce yourself, young lady.
Okay, so let's see. My name is Meg, and I currently work with Positech Tool Corporation in Huntersville. But prior to that, was in the media and radio space for over 20 years between Detroit, Pittsburgh, West Palm Beach, and then over 10 years here in Charlotte. Got my start in Detroit, which is hometown, just outside in Grosse Pointe. And I met Mario. Gosh, Mario, it's probably been like 3 years, maybe
more, yeah.
3 or more now, because a really good friend of his thought that he needed to attempt to set Mario and I up on a date. So he called the radio station and embarrassed both of us to no end, and a friendship came of it. And so that's where we are today. So I handle social media, PR, brand and reputation management, and anything else they want to throw in there, podcasting, all of it for Positech, which is Works Tools, Rockwell Tools, Blue Ridge Tools, and yeah. So that's us.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, I appreciate both of you guys for coming on. The purpose of this cast is really just to kind of hang out, be real, talk about some sports, what's going on in our world today. It's really just a quick hit. We go live at 7:45 as our little cast tag, but then we talk about a little bit of seriousness and life skills near the end of this. But what are you guys' thoughts real quickly on Mecklenburg County now deciding to release the stay order and kind of follow through with North Carolina? So now it's starting to open up a little bit more with businesses. Meg, why don't you let us in on what your thoughts are? How are you think you're gonna adapt to transitioning back into normality?
I don't even know that it's necessarily like back into, because we all have a new normal now, right? I mean,
right.
It's been going on we started working from home, and to give you guys a little insight, the company that I work for is Chinese owned. So they had already gone through all of this where, our production plants were down at 10%. And, let me quick throw in a plug for them, because they, through this entire thing, have not furloughed one employee, have not had anybody take a pay cut, have not forced unpaid vacations or anything. They've done everything they can to keep their American staff up and running and off of the unemployment line. So we saw this coming, or my owner saw this coming, and he had us working from home starting on March 11th before anything really hit. And so it's been a new normal for us, but I think if it's taught anybody anything is to hopefully be appreciative of, all of the freedoms that we do have. And I think it's had people focusing more on their relationships, picking up the phone, calling family members, staying in touch a little bit better. Do I agree with the way, things are being released? I think, not only is it our responsibility to be careful as these businesses open back up, but I also think that the onus is on the business owners who have been screaming and yelling, let us open, let us open, let us open, which, hey, I'm all for everybody getting back to work and making money and being able to pay their bills, right? But at the same time, the onus is also going to fall on them to make sure that they're running their businesses in a safe manner so that we don't wind up right back here. So, right. I think the world is probably going to go a little nuts for a while with people being cooped up as long as they have. But I mean, you look at a state like Michigan, where my family is, and, they had Lowe's and Home Depot and everything else open. But if you went in, you couldn't buy plants. You couldn't buy sod, you couldn't buy mulch, you couldn't do any of that. The only things that you were allowed to buy were what were considered essential items. And so, the Walmarts and stuff. So those people up there are really losing their minds. So I think you couldn't have landscapers do your lawn, but you could go to the store and buy lottery tickets. So, I mean, it just, there were so many, I think it was definitely a learning thing for everybody involved, but I think honestly, it's a new normal now, and I think people are going to pay closer attention, at least for the immediate future.
Right. Wow. What are your thoughts there, Chris? No, that was good. I mean, it makes a lot of sense what you just said.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think, I think people and businesses are going to realize that, working from home, a lot of people can do their normal job stuff from home. I mean, I know I would rather be in the office most of the time, but I think companies are going to realize, I don't know what impact that's going to have on things, but I think companies are going to realize that their workers or employees can be productive working from home. But I agree with Meg. I mean, it's going to be moving forward. I think it's going to change the way we all go about our daily lives. I mean, whether it's going to the store, going to a restaurant, I mean, it's going to change for a while, if not permanently, the way we interact with other people. It's just the strangest time we're in dealing with all this.
Yeah.
I heard a good comparison. Oh, gosh, something I was watching one of the news programs the other day, just talking about how, after 9/11, the way we fly completely changed, and everybody was like all freaked out about having to go through all the extra measures in airports and stuff, right? But after a few months, like literally everybody just got used to it, right? It became the new normal on that end. So I think, I think that's what's going to happen with this is there are going to be permanent changes that occur on how we do certain things, but it's just going to, at first it'll be a little weird, but then they'll just get used to it. And, 10, 20 years from now, we'll look back and be like, yeah, remember we used to do it that way, but yeah, we thought it was be a big deal, but yeah, it is what it is now.
I mean, you're right. I think that's exactly what's going to happen. Is a lot of us are just going to, it's just going to go away, and everybody just accepts what's happening. I can tell you that for me, I find myself trying to find things that I didn't realize were real. Like, for instance, did you know that the lefty-righty rule does not apply to chapstick? If you turn it left, it actually goes up. It doesn't go down. I mean,
who knew?
Who knew, right? Isn't that crazy? Lefty-righty, lefty-loosey is not loose in this case. Something I learned during quarantine.
You're not loosening or tightening your chapstick. You're
Exactly. Thank you, Chad. Thank you.
So
pretty obvious.
Well, Mario, I can finish my day out or continue my day knowing that now.
I think my day's done. I don't know. All I did.
Well,
the more you know.
See, Now, I know I want to talk about some sports real quick because I know Meg's got a big mouth about some sports. But Chris, I know you're into golf, but what is your team, Meg? I mean, who do you honestly follow as a professional team?
Okay, so let's see. I mean, you can put that upstate thing down right now. I grew up as Chris was saying, too many women in the house, right? So I grew up in a household with 3 girls. My mom, my 2 sisters, and my dad, and even the dog was female. He couldn't get a break, didn't get a son till his future marriage. Let's just leave it at that. And but Dad instilled sports early. So it was University of Michigan football, Red Wing hockey, and Detroit Tiger baseball. There was really never an NFL team in the mix. I mean, heck, it was the Lions, right? So let's leave it alone. Dad went, my grandfather went to Michigan, so we spent Saturday afternoons a lot of times out in Ann Arbor at the big house with Bo Schembechler coaching and Dad teaching me how to throw a football. To this day, I think I can throw one better than Mario, but it's okay.
So that's why you didn't like my App State Cup, huh?
Hey.
Yeah.
Then, radio took me to Pittsburgh, and my first day on the air in Pittsburgh, they put a name in front of me on the radio, and they said, you have to be able to say this name if you're going to, be on the radio and live and make it in this town. And it was Fuamatu Ma'afala. So, and I nailed it. So that was good. And I even threw in the shut your mouth afterwards. So they appreciated that. But then, so I became a Steeler fan for a really long time. And, met Jerome Bettis, interviewed Mike Cower, just all these great things throughout. The Rooney family was always fantastic. And then went to Florida and still followed the Steelers when I was in Florida. And then came to Carolina, and now I've been here for about 11 years. And I still like the Steelers, don't get me wrong. I mean, and I was a Steeler fan back when they had a worse record than the Detroit Lions. So if that, puts it all in perspective. But I do pull for Carolina quite heavily, even with all the changes right now that just don't really make sense to me. But, big Greg Olson fan, big Luke Kuechly fan, and so I'm excited to see what the next year brings.
You're basically a big Exodus fan.
I mean.
Or can we call you a Redskins fan now?
No. Well, yeah, I mean, I do love me some Ron.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and he is, and I can honestly say he's, one of the nicest, most genuine men. If you haven't had the opportunity to meet him, he's so gracious. He was in the mall one day, and I saw people going up to him, and this was after, he left the Panthers, and people were coming up to him, young kids were coming up to him, and he took time with every single person that would walk up to him and say hello, and just didn't have, kind words for everybody. And I think he's really going to be missed here. I really do.
Yeah, well, he's going to be loved where he is now.
Oh, heck yeah, he is. Sure.
What do you think? Where are you following, Chris? What's going on with you in the sports world?
So professional sports, I mean, I grew up a diehard Redskins fan. Growing up here, So growing up here.
That's how you got on this thing.
So growing up here, every Sunday it was either the Cowboys or the Redskins, because those are the teams on TV. So you had to pick one. And they were geographically, besides the Falcons, the closest team to here. So once we got the Panthers, my allegiance definitely changed. So I still keep up with the Redskins, but I'm a Panthers fan for sure. Sorry, Mario.
No, hey, I mean, if we took all your players, it's all
I mean, I love the Redskins so much growing up, though. I mean, it was just so cool.
But it was easy to love the Redskins when we were growing up, Chris, because they won.
They were good. That's right.
True point.
Growing up through high school, I thought, man, I'm picking a great team to like. Man, they won 3 Super Bowls. They're winning all the time. And then I graduate high school, and then they just fall off the cliff.
It was Chad's fault. He should have never left high school.
Blame it on Chad. Good. So as far as college stuff goes, I mean, I went to Appalachian State. Grew up in a household full of Tar Heel fans, so I grew up a Carolina fan and still am. When they play each other, like Appalachian State plays Carolina, it's a tough call for me. But I always lean towards my alma mater. So.
We were talking about this before, man. Y'all are on the map, really good on the football spectrum for sure.
When I was there, not so much, but now, well, they won those 3 national championships back, in a row. and the program just took off from there. So it's exciting.
Yeah, I haven't been to that campus yet, but I heard it's super cool campus. Is it Boone? Is that where?
It's in Boone.
Yeah.
It's carved out in the middle of the mountains. It's a gorgeous campus. I mean, it's changed a lot since I was there, but it's beautiful.
Yeah, the population has definitely grown over there for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. Hey, so what have you guys been doing during this quarantine time to kind of fill your void, if you will, with sports not being on TV? What are you currently watching, or what are you filling your time with?
Food.
Filling your time, not your mouth.
That too. You gotta prepare the food.
Oh, okay.
No, working from home has been really busy, especially, we went pretty much all digital with our ad campaigns and everything, social media ad campaigns. So, on a daily basis during the week, there's probably over 300 comments that I have to sift through and make sure that, nothing is abusive or, that kind of thing. And then, just the day-to-day on top of that, because work really hasn't changed. But a lot of Hulu, a lot of Hulu, a lot of Netflix, a lot of Showtime, HBO.
What's your number one Netflix show that you fell for?
Oh, wow.
That's bad. When you're going to think that bad, that means you've been through a lot.
I've been through a lot. I mean, that's the crazy part. So, I mean, we watched like the girly stuff, right? Like the Outer Banks and All American. And,
love me some Outer Banks.
Yeah.
Did I say that out loud?
You did.
I told you.
This is being recorded, right?
Yep, it is. You can use it for later. Let's see. Outer Banks, Ozarks, which I haven't started the current season yet. But
I just finished it, Meg.
Was it good?
It's awesome. Yep.
Okay, good. And then if you jump over to Hulu, Little Fires Everywhere. I watched that one. I'm excited for Billions to come back on Showtime this Sunday night. I mean, that is a passion for me. I love that show.
What is that? I've never even heard of that.
Billions? Who are you right now? Really?
I'm in front of my TV enough.
Meg,
if the acting staff is over 21, then I probably don't watch it.
That's why. Yep, that's probably about it. That's about right. Guys, will you fill him in on Billions, please?
I used to watch Billions. I watched the first 2 seasons. Loved the first season. The second season, I was like, nah. And I haven't been able to get back into it since. I mean, I always see it on Showtime. I'm like, I should probably give this a chance again. But yeah, that second season kind of lost me.
Well, the second season was kind of slow. I'll agree with you there. But then the third season picked back up, and then it's great. I don't know. Wow. What do you think, Chris?
I'll have to get another chance.
What are your thoughts, Chris?
Yeah, so Billions is on my list. I haven't watched it yet, but all my friends watch it and love it. We just finished Ozark, which is phenomenal. What's another one on Netflix? You? Has anybody watched You?
My roommate binge watched that, and she was like, "I can't watch it anymore." She goes, "It's too creepy, way too creepy."
It's dark and disturbing.
You is the dude that's like crazy.
Yeah,
right? Yeah, I like that one. That's a good one.
Yeah.
He's a stalker.
Of course, you did.
Stalker.
That's how he knows him.
Yeah, he's a stalker / serial killer type guy.
Got that really cool library. Yeah.
Really sweetheart of a guy. He really is.
Real gem. Take him home to mama.
Yes, or he'll keep you forever.
That's right. Exactly. Other than TV, I find myself, I'm definitely outside a lot more, walking with the dogs, with kids, riding bikes, connecting with family and just neighbors more. And that's something, that will continue, right? It's just good to see so many people out, just out and about in the neighborhood. So besides that, new recipes. I love to cook.
Nice.
So I do all the cooking here pretty much. But so trying some new stuff out.
What's your favorite new dish, Chris?
What's that?
What's the favorite new thing that you've made? What's the family liked the most?
Let's see. Last weekend I made some scallops. I did some blackened seared scallops with a pineapple cream sauce. It's delicious.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, hey, seafood's going to have to be the way if they start closing down the steak and chicken issues. It's going to be tough out there.
Yeah.
Quite.
Well, let me ask you guys, what's the biggest positive that you've taken away maybe in your current life or even in business that COVID's kind of reintroduced to you or completely introduced to you guys? during this quarantine?
I think for me, it's probably been working out. I've been working out probably 3 or 4 times a week for the first time since I can't remember when.
Wow. That's interesting. I like that.
Yeah. I mean, I just figured if I'm going to be here every day, I can carve out an hour of a day, 3 or 4 times a week to do something active. So I've been treadmill, doing some lightweight stuff, and just trying to get in better shape.
Well, I mean, it's interesting you're saying that, because a lot of people are arguing, including myself, that there is no way to do fitness, right? For someone possibly like yourself who's not a gym member prior to this, now that you've quarantined yourself to a house, you're like, well, shit, I might as well go to the gym in the room next door.
Right.
Right?
And there's
So
videos, there's videos you can watch where you follow along and do a workout. And we've got some like dumbbells and stuff. I mean, it's amazing how much stuff you can do with just 2 weights,
Well, I mean, if you go to prisons, those guys are in fantastic shape.
Do you know this how?
I already talked about my life lessons. We're not going to rehash that again. So, Meg, what's going on with you? What's the biggest positive you could take away so far? That
I learned how to use my big green egg grill. So
nice.
that was positive.
The big green egg.
That was a positive.
With pellets?
Stop it. No. So I got some, got like the outside in order. I was able to take the time and finally focus on, planting some bushes and stuff like that outside, not even really reconnecting with family, because if you know me, you know that I'm really close with my family anyway. But now it's almost like I've given my mother a little bit too much leeway. And if I don't FaceTime with her today, guaranteed it'll be twice tomorrow. But, other than that, I've been playing tennis a few times a week, which was definitely different because I've been doing some clinics with like 2 girlfriends of mine with a pro, and we don't touch the tennis balls at all except for with the racket, like not even to pick them up or anything. So it was, and then they were like, do you want to practice serves? I was like, nope, I don't want to touch the balls. So it's been great exercise, but it's been definitely different. So that, and just kind of like you, Chris, I did have to take one of my dogs to the vet because he was sick, and it was so different, like handing him over when he's sick and not feeling well and going, oh my gosh, because he's 16. So it's like I'm handing him over and I'm going, is this going to be okay? What happens if something goes sideways or whatever? But, appreciating the little things, I think, is the biggest positive for me, is, taking a look around and realizing, I'm lucky to still be working in a world where so many are not. Right. And, just to be able to continue to a certain extent the normalcy, but it just has to be from home.
Yeah, that's cool. Great shares. I mean, that was a random question, but did you refi during the COVID there, Meg?
No, did not refi during the COVID. We might after the COVID is done, but I'll tell you, I mean, and Chris, you can speak to this, I guess, but we're finding a lot with like refis and home loans right now. And Mario, I got my real estate license not too long ago, but we're finding, more so that banks, you almost have to have like a perfect credit score to get a mortgage these days without a blip on the screen. At least that's what a friend of mine with Bank of America was telling me. And refis, because I own this house with my mom and she's in Michigan. So we were thinking about it, but the governor of Michigan, they put in like these new line items and everything for refi right now. And you have to state that your income has not been affected by COVID-19 and all this other stuff too. So there's definitely some extra hoops if you're trying to refi.
So, different banks have put in place different requirements because of all of this. The biggest thing we've seen are credit score requirements. For Prosperity, the company I'm with, I mean, we're still at like a 660 credit score, and that's really the only, I guess, overlay that we have. And that's for a refinance or a purchase. Otherwise, things are being underwritten, normal. Based on what we're used to. The only thing, depending on your line of work, we may ask how COVID has impacted your business. Like for self-employed borrowers, obviously, Mario, Chad, what you guys do. I just did a refi for a realtor in our office, and they asked her to provide a letter stating the impact COVID has had. How is her business looking? What does she have in her pipeline? What does she have coming up?
Wow, really?
As far as closings, listings, yeah. And luckily her business had not suffered at that point. But yes, some of the bigger banks like Bank of America, like Wells, like Chase. Chase is the largest mortgage bank in the country. And they are across the board require a 700 credit score right now.
Wow.
And they put that in place about
I think we lost.
Froze. He froze.
the rest of the industry does it, right? And that's yet to be seen. We don't have any plans of raising ours higher than 660 right now. So other than that, the appraisal process has changed a little bit. Fannie and Freddie are allowing like exterior only appraisals, which is great. So appraisers don't actually have to go in the house. And in some cases, no appraisal at all is required, depending on if you're doing a refi, especially if you've got a lot of equity and good credit scores, and an appraisal in a lot of cases isn't even required. So,
wow, cool.
Yep.
Good stuff. Well, I'm going to dial this real quick and talk about our screw ups that we've had in our past that have kind of turned into build-ups, maybe in our personal lives or our professional lives. And hoping you guys can give us a great share. And ladies first.
Oh, I mean, I'll tell you, it's, for me, I think I'm pretty close to perfect. I'm just kidding. So totally just kidding.
I've never met anyone like me.
Right? So I think, you know what, and I don't know that you would necessarily call this a screw up per se, but, there was, before radio, I was in a long-term relationship, right? And was kind of floundering as to where I was going and what I was doing with my life, as my dad said. And we were, talking about marriage and stuff like that. And then when that ended, I honestly think that because that relationship ended, and if you want to call that a screw up, I don't know that it's so much a screw up as far as like a big time life change, because we were together for so long and talking about marriage and everything else. And probably the closest I've ever come to marriage, because then work took off.
Right.
It was because of that I wound up working where I did, and then meeting the two guys that I first worked with in radio in Detroit, and actually was able to start that career, and then went from Detroit to Pittsburgh with those guys and worked with them in Pittsburgh, and then losing my job after 9/11 and going back to Detroit and still working in radio on a part-time basis, but then getting the phone call from Florida for a co-host position. And then from there, winding up here in Charlotte in a top 25 market. And then, working in that top 25 market and leaving radio on my own terms, which is not common. Usually in radio, it's you're here one day, you're gone the next. I've been lucky enough that the only job that I ever lost in radio, when I lost it in West Palm due to restructure or whatever you want to call it, I had another job within 2 weeks. So it was, because of that relationship ending, and he and I, we still talk on occasion, and it was like, it's not that I don't love you anymore, but I love you so much, and we're going in these two different directions. We need to let each other go. And that was actually, I think, harder in a lot of ways, because, and I'm talking to three guys here. So this is like girl talk, giving you a little insight, because, women want that closure, right? So, right. And when there isn't that closure, it kind of always leaves you wondering. Well, it wasn't until I was living here in Charlotte, and he and I still friendly, can pick up the phone and call, happy birthday, Merry Christmas, all that stuff. And it wasn't until I was living here in Charlotte, and I had a conversation with him after his mom passed away. And I said, you know what? I said, I kind of have to say thank you. Wow. Because as much as it sucked and as much as it hurt, and I mean, my life was reeling, right? And so as much as all of that happened, had he not been the one to step up and say, we've got to do this, I never would be where I am today. And I never would have had the experiences that I've had. And I've never would have lived the, extraordinary life that I have. Are there times where I wish I would have gotten married and not let the work take over? Yeah, sure. Absolutely. There's no question. Would I have loved to have had kids if that was in the cards? Yeah, absolutely. But, my life took a different path, and, hindsight 2020, I love the path that it took. And it was because of that ending, that was so painful, that got me to where I am today. So is it a screw up? I don't know if it's so much a screw up as it was, a big life change that happened. So, I mean, I was living in Canada I was, you know, we were living together in Canada, had been living together for almost 4 years. And, you know, so everything changed at the drop of a hat. So yeah, that was basically
awesome.
it.
That's a great.
There's the girly version.
Well, I hate to say this, but she teed that up for you there, Chris. What you got?
Aren't we out of time?
Exactly what I was thinking for myself. But thank you very much.
Oh, man. The one thing I was thinking about is you hear it all the time. Timing is everything, right? Especially punctuality. So when I was in the golf business before I got into mortgage, I was going through the final phases of being like a straight up PGA professional. And one of the last things to do is you got to take what's called the PAT, or player ability test. Is they give you 36 holes to shoot a certain score. And usually it was around 4 or 5 over per round. I remember when I took it, the number was 150, right? For 2 rounds, I had to shoot 150. So that's 75, which back then, I mean, I was playing a lot, I was playing well. That's not an issue, or shouldn't have been an issue.
Right.
So it is 2 days, right? 18 holes one day, 18 holes the next. So first day I go out and I shoot 70.
Wow.
So I was like, man, I can blow up and shoot an 80 tomorrow and I'm still good to go, right? So I had an early tee time the next morning. It was like I was first or second group off, oversleep, get to the golf course, and I'm probably 30, 45 minutes past my tee time.
Oh.
They wouldn't let me play. So I had to, that was one of their rules. If you miss your tee time, you're out. So,
wow.
I mean, I begged and pleaded for them to let me go off and play. And nope, didn't. So I basically got disqualified from that part of the test. And when I went to retake it, because you got to wait, I can't remember, you had to wait like 3 or 6 months before you could try that player test again. And I tried it 2 more times after that and didn't pass. I missed it by 2 shots the third time I took it. And then that was when I decided to get out of the industry. Because anyway, so timing is everything, right? Being on time, being punctual. But anyway, it definitely taught me a lesson that I'll never forget, because that would have definitely taken my life a different path if I'd have passed that test and actually become a true PGA professional. So
I get that. I get that completely, because, you know, when I initially left radio, it was for this position that was supposed to be absolutely fantastic. And it was supposed to carry me off into the sunset and look at it that way. And the guy that I worked with, you know, he'll retire before I'm ever ready to retire. And I didn't want to be left, you know, going, now what? Right. So I take this job, and it just wasn't what it was supposed to be. And it was the hardest thing, because you look at my resume and it said 20 years of radio. And people, when you tell them, you know, what you did, they're like, oh, you were the girl who giggled on the radio in the background. And, you know, I was like, oh no, there was so much more to it. You know, there were probably about, you know, 10 different hats that you wore. That was just one of them. And it was, you know, the blogs and the social and the brand building and, you know, all of that, and marketing yourself. But, you know, it took, and I'd never been unemployed for more than 2 weeks. And so it was, you know, 10 months, almost 11 months before I had, you know, another full-time job. And once I had that job, it was crazy, because the radio industry, the company I was working for, went through, and they had offered to keep me on and match what this other company was going to pay me, which was quite a bit more. And so they had offered this, and I still left. And so then, you know, you're struggling for those 10, 11 months thinking, oh gosh, what have I done? Have I made a mistake or whatever? But then I get this other job and I'm doing great. And the company I worked for went across the board and slashed over 1,200 jobs in 3 days. And I have no doubt that, you know, at that point, my job probably would have been eliminated, because they would have put me in that, you know, bottom line bracket where your job is just, you know, gone. So it's funny how, you know, little things like that happen to bring you to another place where you.
It changes the whole course of your life, right? Your plan.
Yeah.
I mean, my plan was to be a golf professional and either try to make some tour or be a club professional somewhere. And I mean, so that me oversleeping potentially changed the way my life has turned out. It's
no question.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's now I got a good fun question for you, Meg. I mean, since you're obviously interviewing with three of probably the coolest people, since your career has gone 20 some odd years, so who was your favorite celebrity interview that you've done?
Oh, that's a good question.
Oof. It wasn't country. I'll tell you that. It wasn't country.
That's cool.
My favorite celebrity interview that I got to do was with Lionel Richie.
Oh, that's awesome.
That was not only a bucket list, and it's funny because the guy who was producing it for me at the time, who was in the room, took a picture of me when I was interviewing him, and because it was over the phone, and literally I must have had a grin on my face from California to New York State, and it was so incredible because he got on with me, and I was like, Motown, and he's like, yeah, and I was like, I'm from Detroit. He goes, girl, if you are from Detroit, and just so great. And it was 20 minutes. Like, I got him for 20 minutes, which was insane, because any of the interviews we've ever done in radio, it's like, you've got 7 minutes door to door, get what you need and you get out. And sometimes you only have 3 minutes. So it's like, they sit down, you're like, hi, goodbye. That's about it. Yeah. And then he was so great because he said, I had done some freelance work for his tour manager. And I was like, is Marty Hom still with you? And he was like, Marty, how's that work? And we talked about that. And then he was coming here to Charlotte, and I had knee surgery 6 days before he came. So I'm, still wrapped up in an ace bandage and everything else. But I'm telling you what, Lionel Richie said I was going to get to meet him that day. And I went backstage, and he goes, when you walk up to me, he goes, I want you to just look at me and go, Lionel, it's Meg. And I walked up to him. I'm like, Lionel, it's Meg. And he was like, oh my God, and he was just so amazing. So I think second only, Garth Brooks was incredible to interview, incredible to meet. If sorry, that's one of the dogs in the background, the senior of the group. If you know a little bit about my story, that 3 years ago I had a meningioma brain tumor removed. And Garth was the second concert I had afterwards. And while I was out recovering, Garth had called in and sent his good wishes, saying that he and Trisha Yearwood were praying for me and so on. And so when you do a meet and greet with Garth, it's very rare. And, he is very picky as far as who he will meet. And, there's a whole process involved. Right. And so I had bought a guitar, because I don't, collect per se autographs. I've got autographed guitars. And so I bought this one guitar, and it was just the Garth guitar. Right. And so I lug it back, and there's a room of about 8 of us. And we're all talking with Garth, and Trisha comes in, and we're all just, shooting the breeze basically. And Garth sees my guitar, and he says, do you play? And I said, no, actually a mutual friend of ours. I said, when I got into this industry forever ago, she had given me a guitar to get autographs with, because I didn't have anything. I said, and it just sort of stuck. I go, but this is the guitar just for you. And he was like, he goes, wait, and he goes, wait, Meg, right? And I said, yeah. And then it was like it all clicked, and he got all teary-eyed, and he looked at me and he goes, where's your mom? Because he knew my mom was in town taking care of me. And I was like, Mom went back to Michigan. And he's like, Trisha. He said, this is Meg. He goes, this is who we've been praying for. And literally there are tears in this man's eyes. And he's like, please come here, and I was sitting on a chair further back, and, he just hugged on me, and he was like, we have prayed so hard that you were going to be okay. He goes, we're so thankful that you're here. And just, such an amazing individual. I can honestly say just an amazing individual. But I kind of think that that's how country music is too, as a whole with the artists. And Taylor Swift, same thing. When I got to Charlotte from Florida, there was a welcome to Charlotte handmade card from Taylor on my desk, wow. And I mean, you guys know Darius Rucker's one of my favorites. The first interview we had when I got here, he proceeded to tell Paul Shad just how lucky he was.
Well, he's still one of your really good friends too. You guys.
Yeah. So we were talking last week, but he was funny because Paul's like, I don't know that I'm so lucky. And he goes, why am I so lucky? He goes, cause you got Meg. He's like yelling it into the phone or whatever. But, country music is such a different genre when it comes to the artist, because they really do truly care. I mean, sure, there are some in there that, don't fit the mold, but the ones that make it are the ones that are just, attainable. And that's one thing that the country music fans love, is they have to be able to relate with you. Even if they have millions of dollars, they're still just normal people 90% of the time.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
a really long answer for your question.
No, it was awesome. I think we learned a lot there, and I think that's what it's all about. I mean, that's fantastic. I think, that there's just so many unique stories that we all carry with us. And for you, Chris, I mean, coming from your type of background, going through such, I know at that time was probably one of the biggest tragedies in your life. You're like, what the hell? But what is one of your favorite golf courses that you've either competed on or played on?
Probably my favorite course that I played is a place called Sage Valley. It's down outside of Augusta, Georgia. And the story behind it is that the guy that built the course tried to get into Augusta National and they wouldn't let him in. So he said, I'm going to build a course that's nicer and prettier. And so he built Sage Valley. I don't know how long it's been around, but it is breathtaking. I mean, it's gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. And it's a caddy only, golf course. It's just elevation changes. Like if you've been to Augusta, like TV doesn't do it justice, right? I mean, there's so much elevation there, and it's the same way at Sage. It was just a phenomenal experience playing that place, but definitely the best, nicest golf course I've ever.
That's probably the coolest FU story you've ever.
Oh, no question. Yeah. The guy's name is Wendell Wyatt, and he got the contract to do all the parking lots for all the Walmarts in the country.
Wow.
He's got a little bit of money.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, look, in closing, guys, I appreciate both of you guys as well as Chad for taking your time out in the mornings here to hang out with us. But in closing, I know, Meg, yours is a little bit different than some of the folks that we have on our podcast. But if there's anything, I know you put out a shout out to your company. Is there something you want to share about that company? And then for you, Chris, a way for people can get a hold of you, maybe even Meg, if she wants to talk about that refi, for folks to get with you guys in the future. Go ahead, Meg. What do you got?
Well, I mean, I think for one thing, the fact that I manage these social media channels, and one of the biggest things that I've seen lately is, buy American, support the mom and pops, support the small businesses and that. And I think for me, what I might say to people is, being that I do, our products come from China, but we have, a few hundred American jobs here that are supported by this Chinese company, and they've done right by us and gone over and above to make sure that we're taken care of during all of this. So maybe before we throw the blanket, FU China, maybe take a look at supporting those, small mom and pop businesses, of course, but also support those businesses that have been supporting American jobs and keeping American people off the unemployment line. And to me, I think that is just as important as supporting local and mom and pop shops, because those people can't go and support those shops if the company that they're working for isn't keeping them employed. So, and with so many people that are unemployed right now, that's really, really important. So, as far as a way to get a hold of me, I mean, there's Facebook, it's Meg B Radio, and it's all one word on Facebook. You can find me there. And but thanks for your time. Fun today. This is fun.
Yeah. Go ahead, Chris. What do you got?
Yeah, thanks for having me too, Mario. This has been great. I agree with Meg. It's been a fun way to spend the morning,
Making me shower before 7 a.m.
Before you got on, Meg, I was like, I actually got dressed today, guys.
Don't make me pan.
So rates are obviously really low because of everything that's going on, and rates are going to stay low for a while. But here's a good way. Can y'all see that?
No.
Okay.
Looks like
It's back when I had a little more hair than I do now. But best way to reach me, I'm on Facebook as well. Chris Bennett, Prosperity Home Mortgage, my website. Easy to find out there. Just Google me.
Google. Well, look, guys, I appreciate all of y'all, man. It's been a lot of fun. When Chad and I sat down and talked about doing this a week and a half ago, I literally showed up for work. And I'm like, Chad, he's like, what? I got an idea. I was like, what's the idea? We're going to start a video podcast. So we kind of, and it was that day we did our first interview. A couple hours later, Chad's like, wait a second. What'd you do, Chad? He's like, I need my coffee before.
Well, he said, I have an idea of what we're going to do next. And I was like, do I need coffee for this? And he said, yeah, probably. I was like, okay. So I went and grabbed coffee, drank my first cup, and I said, okay, I'm ready. What you got?
Yeah.
Let's
and
go.
we kind of threw it together, and it's been really cool because we really, we're getting a lot of depth out of it. And I think it's just stories like yours, Meg, as well as Chris, man, bringing that to light to some of the things that we've learned over time just to keep ourselves moving forward. I think the goal for this, for me personally, was to hear not all about celebrating all of our successes, but kind of seeing how we grew ourselves to get to where we are today. And so if you look at some of the other casts that we've done, man, there's some really deep stories that we've heard. And I appreciate both of you guys for sharing with us. And I hope the people that are listening to capture something from this. More importantly, I just hope you guys enjoy yourselves. And I can't wait to see either one of you when that time is right and give both of you guys a hug because I'm tired of seeing Chad. Oh, man, I keep forgetting he's right there.
At least you didn't say
you and me both,
your
buddy.
wife. I mean, that's good.
It goes both ways.
But anyway, so I appreciate you guys. You guys have a great rest of your week, and we'll catch up to you shortly.
You too. Nice to meet you, Meg.
Nice to meet
Thanks,
you
guys.
too.
Bye, guys.
Thanks.
See ya.
Bye.